All right, I think it's time to get started. Welcome, welcome to this talk about Microprofile and IoT and all the other fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking forward to geek out for 1 hour about Microprofile combined with Internet of Things and these very strong lights. Maybe we should dim them at some time. You'll see why they're here after a while. So we're going to talk about Internet of Things powered by Microprofile.
And the idea of this talk was actually to create some kind of demo to show off the cool things and cool parts of the demo of the Microprofile. And then we kind of realized, well, you know, we can use lights, but we'll talk a bit more about that in a second. So first, I guess we say hello and welcome.
Yeah.
And then we can talk a little bit more about.
Yeah. Like if you got any questions or things you want to ask about or want to know more about as we talk, just raise your hands and we handle that. I think we have quite some time.
We do. It should be fine.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about motivation. I started talking about that a little bit already, but well, the thing was that we needed a good demo to show off the things. Yes, thank you. Whew. That's a little bit better. We started with just looking for a good way of learning Microprofile and making it work and figuring out all the good features of that thing. Because everybody was talking about that, but there were some demos on that, but they weren't like good enough and they were not really kind of real-lifey enough, right? And then we realized one thing. We realized that, well, it was a few months ago. It was quite a few months ago, and then we realized that in a few months, we will be moving. Our office, the office we're working in, will be moving to another place. And then we thought that, well, you know, there are not really that many better ways of figuring things out than actually being able to control lights in a new office.
Yeah, also we were a bit motivated by, okay, we can't find any good examples on Microprofile, and if you wanted to use it in a real system, how would you do that? As we found no tutorial or for our example, just small parts here and there, we figured out, okay, why don't we do it ourselves?
And then we ended up like over-engineering as well, and that's kind of, it was the feature of the whole thing because, well, we wanted to see all the things, and we work with enterprise software, so, you know.
We over-engineer, yeah.
We end up over-engineering stuff as well. To get started, because all the good things start usually with a huge architecture drawing of the whole thing, and when you end up over-engineering that as well, so you end up with something like this. You have the main service, kind of the brain of the whole thing, one tiny little service.
Yeah, that's the gateway service.
That's the gateway service. And then you have a bunch of other services doing all the kind of other things. So we went with microservices, and they were like micro. Yeah. So we have a service returning us time, period.
Yeah.
Another one for the weather. So it just basically returns you temperature in a specific area, in a specific place, and just gives you that.
Yeah, and the background story here, of course, is we want to be able to control the lights and like adjust the brightness and color of the lights depending on, okay, what time of the day is it? How's the temperature of the weather outside? These kind of things.
Yeah, so you want to, basically, you want to have your lights a bit more bright. When it's dark outside, it's gray outside and sad, and you kind of want to be a bit more warmer lights and be happy. And then when it's sunny outside, you don't really have to have super crazy bright lights because it's, well, bright outside. So, you know, you do these kind of things. And you also want to control your lights depending on the time of the day. So in the morning, a bit more kind of bright lights, in the evening, a bit less, and so on, right? So time service returns time, weather service returns weather, kind of obvious. But then we created a lightning control service, and it has nothing to do with the lightnings outside. It's more like the lights.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if we already said that, but these are Philips Hue light bulbs that you can control through an app or Java code if you want to, as we have done, or like they are connected. They're so-called smart lights.
Yeah, and those smart lights have an API. There is a jar file you can download after like signing up with lots of stuff and writing a lot of information. Then you get a jar file, and then you're sitting there. It's like, well, you know, it has an API, but well, it's very detailed and it's too much. It's an overkill. So we wrapped that thing, and we wrapped that in a tiny little service that does a very few things, right?
Yeah, we'll come back to in detail what it does, but the short version is that it receives instructions from the gateway, and it just handles the calls to the light bulbs, so they actually change color and light and so.
Yeah.
As we'll see in a while.
And again, that project is kind of something that we develop in our spare time and just you know, whenever we have time to have some fun. So there are some things that are under construction. So you have a gateway API here that is kind of would kind of put all those services together and make them visible and make them have nice names and stuff. That is not developed yet fully. And then you would have like a few configuration service and like more like light sensor service and stuff like that that will come. But it doesn't. You don't really need that to show off all the features of Microprofile. So it's kind of, you know, we just do it whenever we have time.
Yeah, and because we're over the NING, so as the architecture is now with what we have implemented, you can go directly to the lighting control service without having to go through the gateway, which is a safety issue, security issue in some settings.
So we'll talk a bit more about security in a bit. So, but for now, we want to talk a bit more about Microprofile. How many of you have used that? Okay, one hand.
How many of you have heard about it? How many of you were on the other talk about Microprofile earlier today? Just a couple of you.
Okay, a few of you. Good.
Yeah. There will be some repetition, but hopefully not too much. So.
We kind of realized that how many of you have used Spring Boot? Yeah, there you go. I kind of expected that because the thing is that it is kind of same but different. It is you can do similar things, but you'll do it in a different way. And maybe we should. Is it time to mention the difference now, or should we do it a little bit later?
I think we should do it now. But like first, what is Microprofile? When people ask that, I prefer to answer, well, it's Java EE, but for microservices. So it's those things you typically need for a microservice.
Because, well, Java EE or Jakarta EE, whatever as it's called now, has a lot of libraries. You don't really need those for microservices. And you want your microservices to be tiny, tiny, tiny. And you want them to start real quick. And, well, this is what you get. So it's a bunch of libraries that can be used to create your own microservices. We'll get back to which ones and everything in a second. And the difference, when it comes to the difference between Microprofile and, well, for example, Spring Boot, it is something that, well, if you know Java EE, Jakarta EE, or, well, Enterprise Edition of Java, you can just use Microprofile. You can just continue writing Microprofile stuff. If you want to use Spring Boot and you still, well, you know previously you knew Java or used Java EE, and then you want to switch to Spring Boot, you will have to learn things in a different way. You'll have to do things in a different way, not the way you were kind of used to.
Yeah, and also your Spring Boot, great as it is, it's Pivotal who provides it, right? They are the single vendor. While Microprofile is an open source standard, so there are several different implementations. So say that you use Fontail from Red Hat as your application server, and you want to switch it into using, for example, OpenLiberty. Then the code itself is the same, but all you do is you change the configuration files, the POM files, and some XML files, and then you're done.
So basically, what you can actually do, just to put it like in perspective, you can just copy code from one application to another application that runs on totally different application servers. So you have something running on Thorntail. Well, it used to be called Wildfly, if you know it by that name. It's just changed the name.
Swarm.
Wildfly Swarm. And so then you can move it to Tommy EE or to OpenLiberty or whatever, and it will still run. This is kind of the cool thing. And the other cool thing is that it is supported by quite a few big companies. There is Red Hat there are IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, all the other companies are supporting that. So there is a mix of companies providing application service like Payara and, well, Tommy Tribe and IBM and Red Hat and so on. And then there are some companies that just, well, you know, they like to support that. Yeah, well, Cumulus as well.
Yeah.
Cumulus.
Has anyone used Cumulus, by the way? We haven't, so it'll be interesting to hear.
No.
Oh, take it as a challenge.
So next service.
All right. So there are several different implementations, as we've been speaking about Microprofile, because Microprofile is a standard which different vendors implement in their application servers. And when they speak about their different implementations, there are two things they tend to focus on. So we're just mentioning them briefly here. They tend to talk about jar size and startup time. That's like, it seems like there's a bit of competition between the vendors on these two metrics.
It's always like when you talk about microservices, you just have to, it seems like you just have to show off the size of your jar file and startup time. It has to be quick, it has to be small. Cool. Well, they are a little bit different, but they're kind of still small enough, right?
Yeah, that's the short version. So what is Microprofile? What does it consist of? And that's, yeah, this is the newest version. It's 2.0, came out a couple of months ago, or in June, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll go through each of these ones in some detail during the talk, the rest of the talk. But here you can see like the overview of what the different parts are. And the underlying idea behind picking exactly these capabilities or modules or whatever you want to call them is that, well, these are things you, as Rustam just said, typically need in a microservice.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess there is not that much more to say. Then let's just try to go on and to explain all the other things by picking one service. So we start with the most simple one. This is not going to be a surprise to any of you. The one that you will see in the next slide, or well, next two slides. We're going to talk about Lightning Control Service. So just to recap, it's the one with the red ring there. So that's the one that wraps around the API that Philips Hue provides, or any other thing that has your smart bulbs, your smart whatever things you can control. You just want to wrap them around and control them, right?
Yeah, and this service also acts as an anti-corruption layer in DDD terms, domain-driven design terms, so that if you want to replace your bulbs, you sell your Philips Hue bulbs and buy some from IKEA or any other place, then this service is all you have to change.
Yep. And well, and that one is the most simple one because you just receive a call, you do something with it, and you kind of relate to some other thing, right? So it shouldn't be very much of rocket science to make that work. And well, we start with dependency injection, obviously, right? Pretty obvious stuff. I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise that, well, you know what, we have dependency injection. Come to us. Well, we do. So.
Yeah, it's dependency injection, and it's plain just working the same way as it does in Java EE. So it's, and that's kind of the cool thing about Microprofile as well, is that most parts of it aren't technically impressive or like technically exciting in itself. It just works. So sometimes it feels a bit almost boring to speak about it because it looks so easy and works without more hassle. But
yeah, but the thing is, I mean, the whole point is that it has enough pieces to build your own microservice, and well, that's all it has, right? Yeah. And then you can do even more. Well, we'll talk a little bit about that later. But the thing is that you can even cut it even more down. If the parts you don't use don't get included in your jars, and so on, so on. So then, if you just use very simple stuff, it will just get cut down to a tiny little thing. Another thing which you kind of expect normally and wouldn't really work without for microservices is, well, you have to send and receive JSON, right? REST kind of RESTful, REST-ish services of some kind, right? And well, again, that's kind of very, very simple. No surprises here. It works.
And these three features, CDI, JSON, and JAX-RS, were the three things that were included in the first version of Microprofile. So these were the basic parts.
Yeah, that's kind of pretty much how it all started. You just put the basics, and then you just ship it, right? Yeah. Okay. What else do we have?
One more thing to say about the Lightning Control Service, by the way, is that the Philips SDK. Well, I encourage you don't use it directly. It's big, it's huge, and it's hard to wrap your head around it. So, yeah, they do provide a REST service so that you can control your lights through their REST service. Did we discover after we made this entire service handling all the SDK stuff? So.
Well, yeah. Ours is much easier because we don't really need complicated stuff. It's not like we have invented something new with this one anyway.
We made two services, you can say. Speaking here, one service like tell me how many light bulbs you have connected, and the other one is the one you see here, switch state of light. So on light bulb number 1, set the color to 50, the brightness to 50 and the color to red. Yeah. That's all we need.
That's all we need, and that's, again, the whole point of this, both this talk and this project is just to show off things in Microprofile, not to create yet another IoT kind of thing. Even though we IT people will love doing that, we kind of try to create our own smart house thing. I mean, how many of you haven't tried? Have tried? Yeah, okay, pretty much. There we go. Okay, let's talk about something tiny little bit more complicated. You have the gateway service, so kind of the brain of the whole thing, the one there in the middle. So the point of that service is to receive the input from the other ones, like time and weather data and maybe a light sensor service thing, whatever. And then you just connect all that and you decide what to do with lights, and then you send off a message to the Lightning control service that we have seen already, and well, something happens, right?
And as usual, it's the domain logic part, which has been the hardest one here, because when the user asks to, okay, switch the states of my lights, and you say that, okay, it's 5 degrees outside, how much light should that be?
Yeah,
that's been the hardest part for us, the domain part.
Yes. So that one has a little bit more logic, right? And then the things that you would like to have there is, well, you know, you want to put in some configuration because you don't want to hard code stuff. Yeah. And again, for people that have been working with Java EE, Jakarta EE, all of those, not that much of a surprise that, well, you can do configurations, you can read it from a configuration file, and you can also add default values and stuff like that, which is, well, you know, it's very handy and very simple, very nice.
Yeah, and also it's a hierarchy here, so that the default value will be, yeah, of course, defaulted to if you provide no other property, but if you override it in your, well, in the system environment or in your Docker file, or as a, what's it called, the -d command to Java jar, then it has that is prioritized before. So,
and that is a good thing to actually mention, because this is a kind of we're going to mention some patterns with the ones you see with the microservices, right? So this is one of those things that you want to do, because you would create a microservice depending on which environment it runs in. It will have different configurations. You, for example, want to have proper lights in the production, or you want to have like a yellowish lights in staging and greenish lights in your development, just so you know which one is what and things like that, or whatever else, URLs, names, things like that, right? Yeah. And then you can actually overload those and control them and change them. And if nothing is specified, it just defaults to some kind of other color or whatever.
It plays very well along with Kubernetes and Docker and such as well.
Yeah. All right. What else do we have there?
Yeah, we have some more fun. Health track. And this is also, it seems like it's made for Kubernetes. So for those of you who don't know Kubernetes, Kubernetes provides two kind of probes to check if, okay, is your application alive, or is your application ready to accept calls?
And that's pretty much what you get. So you get, if everything is fine, you get this, and if anything goes wrong, you get to specify what it is. We didn't specify it too much. I mean, we didn't write that much code for the error handling and stuff. So we're basically returning the stack traces back, which is a very bad idea to do in production, just so that's been told.
Don't try this at home.
Don't try this at home. I mean, we're highly trained. No, well, I don't know.
No, but like what we want to show here, though, is that you get the ability to specify your own well, your own data, your own response, and the health check. So for this, here's the implementation, the entire health check implementation that we have provided.
So, I mean, the thing you saw there that had the factorize and everything, that's pretty much this one, e.getMessage. And otherwise, you would have put some stuff there, but that would complicate code, and that would be kind of weird demo to have. So, in production, don't do that. In demo things for playing around stuff might be.
Yeah, and I just recently learned at Rafael's talk about Microprofile earlier today that health check is not intended to be used by humans. It's intended to be used by machines.
Yeah.
And then those texts aren't. It's the only thing that really counts is then up and down, right? Is it up or is it down?
Yep.
That's all you need.
And then you can set up like different rules and stuff in your whatever thing you're using for monitoring it, right? Yeah. Another thing that you want to use, or well, you want to expose for other things to be able to see is the metrics, right? Because like I remember when we were working on like pretty, well, you would say legacy old applications where we actually had to implement all that through JMX and stuff like that. And well, here you just get it without writing that much of a code, really.
Yeah, like if you just add a dependency in your POM file or a config or anywhere else, you get lots of metrics.
Yeah, you get a bunch of default metrics, and then you will be able to extend it with your own stuff as well.
Yeah, like for example, this one, which we have made, is that, okay, track the number of times we change the lights. And then you get a page like your URL/metrics that gives you all the metrics. If you add /application in addition, you get only those metrics you have specified in your code.
Yeah. And again, the point is, you don't really have to do anything. You just add the dependency and it just works. Maybe it should work. Should we show the long list, the scary list of the metrics? Or should we
can
wait?
Give it a shot.
Should we do it now? Yeah, let's do it. Let's show, because the list is really long. I mean, we're not going to go through that, but, you know, it's just nice to...
So we're not going to bore, yeah, we are going to bore you with it.
Okay, we're gonna show it real quick, so we're not gonna go through one and one. Oh, yes, I see lots of text. And now you'll... There you go. Yeah. And that list kind of goes on and on and on.
Yeah, it's lots of stuff. So you get this one out of the box without hardly doing anything.
Yep. So I think we implemented just one, right? Or we have more?
We have more.
Okay.
We'll come back to that during the end of the talk. But this is just to show you that there are lots of things you can get. And for those of you who are more ops, doing more operations, I guess you can provide this into Grafana or Prometheus or anything like that.
Because I mean, the more important thing is that, well, one thing is that how's your application doing? Is it up or is it down? Well, cool, it's up. But how does it actually? What is it doing how things are going? Is it like super busy or super relaxed or super whatever? You know, what's the state it's in?
Is anyone using it at all?
Yeah.
All right, let's move onwards into your microservice calls. So when you have a set of microservices, you typically want some kind of configuration, not configuration, but communication between them, right? So your first microservice, so the gateway calls the weather service and so on. And if you want to do remote calls, well, you should be aware that they sometimes fail. And what do you do then? Well, you need to handle it. And the Microprofile provides a part of it, a module that's called fault tolerance. And fault tolerance has lots of different ways to handle.
Yeah, because I mean, when you talk to a service, you want to handle a few things. When you talk to a service, sometimes it wouldn't just answer within a specific time. You want to add some kind of time limitation to that. We'll get back to that in a second. But then when it doesn't answer, you want to do a few things. You want to, you can do retries. You want to try over and over again, and you want to specify how many times do you have to try, so you don't end up just spamming DDoSing your own services. And then the other thing would be to add a circuit breaker. So if that is not going well, what do I do now? What's my plan B? And then, well, pretty much that's what you do here. You have a retry, you have a circuit breaker, and then in a second we'll see some time limits and...
Yeah, like this one. So it's that EID is Norwegian weather service. So that's the external dependency we use to actually get the weather, or the weather forecast.
So that YRR thing is just like weather.com for Norway kind of thing.
Yeah. So we say that if that service does not respond within 2 seconds, just to pick a number.
Yeah, and then you can default to some other service, right? Then you can go to, well, again, weather.com or any other service, or you can just default to default temperature, or, well, you know, your imagination pretty much is what you have to do there.
Yeah, and you can, of course, combine these, as we saw here. We're combining retrying circuit breaker. You can also combine with timeout or fallback. With fallback, what Rustam just said, so that if we don't get an answer from any of our implementation, any of our choices, then we just default to this method. So if this method get new stateful lights throws an error, then this get default light state would automatically be called, and the value from that one would be returned.
And then, well, the cool thing is that you can actually chain them, right? So you can do like get a lighting service, whatever, from another thing, and if all those fail, you just default to something. So your service never goes really down, kind of. It's a really nice thing to do. Very nice thing to think when you create microservices. Right?
Yeah. All right.
Oh, this is fun.
This is fun. This is why one thing I really like, Microprofile REST client. I really like it when we suddenly got it working. We'll come back to that.
We like it now, to put it that way.
Yeah, we like it now.
Yeah, well, there will be a few slides in a bit, so just hold on.
Yeah, and why do we like it? Because it provides a type-safe way to do remote calls. So this is the interface. This is implemented at the gateway service, and this is the interface that is provided from the lighting control service, the facade. Those two methods we were talking about, right? You want to switch the state of the light, and you want to get the number of lights. And this is actually a REST. Yeah, this is a REST client hiding here.
And again, you don't really have to write that much. You just do add some annotations, and well, magic happens.
Yeah, you specify. You specify which service you want to call, actually.
Yeah.
And then when you want to do it, you can just inject this one, plain old CDI. And
when you have done that,
you need to know some magic parts. Okay, so this, it may be a bit small, but you have to add this to your config file.
We keep the magic stuff secret, so we just keep it in the smallest font possible. But, well, the thing is that without that configuration, it's not working. So just be aware of that. If it fails, just try to see if you have a configuration for that.
Yeah. Google will help you with this, of course.
Well, that used to be the slide. Instead of the green one you saw like 2 slides earlier, that was the slide last time we did this talk. Because, well, the REST client didn't really work properly. And to explain why it didn't really work, we just need to backtrack a little bit about, and well, to the time we were talking about what is Microprofile and how it's being developed. The thing is that there are a bunch of, it's a specification, right? Somebody creates the specification and say, hey, you know what, this is how it's supposed to behave. And then all these vendors, all the companies, IBM, Red Hat, and the other ones, they create their own implementation of that specification. And well, it's work in progress, and it's very new, and it's, you kind of sometimes see things failing, and then you just have to you know, see how to work around that thing. So until now, the REST client was kind of bad. And then we ended up with a third-party library for a web client in our previous version of that code, of that system, because it didn't really work properly. And now it works. Now we replaced it with something that it's supposed to be. And, well, now we're a bit more happy.
Yeah, we're a bit more happy. But we also had to add a prop. What's it called? When you say java.jar, you had to add another part there, another property to enable it to work.
Parameter.
Parameter, yeah. Exactly. So another parameter to make it work with Fontail. In OpenLiberty, it works fine.
Yeah. So the implementation might be the application service. So gateway service now is running on Open Liberty, right?
Yeah, the one with the most logic. So we took the easy way and converted the thing with the most logic. But yeah, it was, well, we did not change the implementation, the Java code at all. So the hard thing was actually figuring out, okay, what kind of POM file does Open Liberty want? What kind of extra config do we have to add and such? And this is, well, certainly one area where the different vendors could improve to make it easier starters.
And well, while we're name dropping all those companies and application service and everything, it's kind of worth mentioning that we don't really work for any of them. We're just using them as well. Many of you might do, and it's just kind of disclaimers. So we're not really trying to push any kind of thing here, and it's more kind of our experience. Hey, we tried this, we played around with this, and this is what happened, and here are the features that you might want to look into. So, well, with disclaimer of the...
That was a disclaimer. Maybe we should do the demo soon as well.
Yeah, well, now we've done the disclaimer, so now we can actually do the demo, maybe.
Yeah, maybe we can.
All right.
Before we go head on.
Anyone wants to demo? No. Okay. Somebody was like, yes, finally. Whew. All right.
So just to start, well, we're running Docker containers for the gateway is running native at the moment, but the rest of the servers are running in Docker. Yeah, so we see everything is running. That's good.
And then we're using the Docker Compose to put them all up and make them run. And well, we're working on, we'll talk a bit more about that in a bit, but well, spoiler alert, we're working on porting that thing to something more kind of cool, like Kubernetes and stuff like that. But that will come in some time on servers near you.
All right, so this is the single call.
Should we turn on the lights?
We can turn on the lights.
All right.
We can try to start with resetting the lights. They are a bit bright right now, right? And what happens now is that it goes a call to, what should happen? Yeah, it goes a call to, this is the facade, which runs, connects to the light bulbs. But currently we haven't approved that the facade should be able to talk with the light bulbs. Because how many of you do, by the way, have a Philips Hue at home? A couple of you, okay. You know that you have to push the button to be able to connect the first time. So that was happening here. And then we said, oh, that took too long time. So then it times out and then you get an exception. But if we try it again and you push the button, something should happen soon. Well,
No bridge found.
Yeah, that happens every now and then. Well, interesting.
Ha! The demo.
This is the demo, so...
The drama of running demo.
Yeah.
We can now actually say it was a totally feature. It's not a bug. we're just done it to wake you up.
All right. Let's do some debugging. Live debugging is also good, right?
Yep. Live debugging is always fun. You can do that. Or I can hold your mic. Waiting for bridge.
It's good. Okay. And all the lights are blue. This is strange. All right, we try a restart that, please. Tends to do the work.
Well, if everything fails, try to turn it off and on again. And it might work at some point.
It actually worked there, and the last time we did just that.
Well, okay, while that is booting, let's talk a little bit more and then we'll do the demo in a few seconds.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about...
That's actually a good thing to...
Maturity. And maturity, well, one thing is the maturity of our demo, because it's a demo and things fail live, but maturity at Microprofile. So we were just talking about the REST client, right? The troubles we had with the REST client. And that's the same thing that, yeah, they are doing the development as we're going. So we started to do Microprofile stuff less than a year ago, and so much has changed in the implementation and in the specification since then, so things are going fast. And that's great, but it's also it's challenging to keep up with documentation, it's challenging to figure out why doesn't things work.
Should we try to?
So just an hour ago, or just an hour before the talk, we noticed a bug in Thorntail that it didn't work with US Maven. It just threw an exception when trying to compile.
It was a really good feeling because Maven just came out with a new version, like 3.6, quite recently. I mean, not that really long time ago. And what happened was that we were getting just with that version 3.6, it would just fail miserably. And it would work totally fine on 3.5. And, and the thing was that there was nothing on Google. Really, I mean, there were not a bug report or anything. So we kind of started with reporting that, but then we had to come here and do a talk. And we have a connection, I think. No, wait.
Yep.
Yes, we did.
Button,
restarting things helps.
Things work.
What do you know? Okay, should we?
Stop right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now it's fine.
Okay.
Now we can just move the
Okay, yeah. So if anything fails, try turning everything on and off again.
That's the moral of the whole thing, right? Because
Yeah.
you didn't know that before.
So now let's just count the number of lights we have on the bridge. Oh, it says 4. We had connected one earlier, which we haven't connected now. That's a funny feature of the Philips USDK. Okay, so let's try to reset the lights.
Oh yeah, the 4 is actually here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. That may not be very visible, the 4 here. Okay, so now I did an API call to reset the lights, just to put the light strength down. And you can see that lights change color.
And just in case you wonder, the one in the middle, it's not that you're like colorblind or anything. The one in the middle is just gray. It's like it's going to be just different shades of white. That one has no color. It's just a feature of that bulb.
Okay, so before we run this is the command that, like the usual use case when you just want the system to set the color of the light bulbs and the brightness of the light bulbs. So what it will do now is make a call to Kyiv, the weather service, figuring out what is the weather in Kyiv, and then it will do some randomness stuff, quite a lot of randomness stuff, just for the sake of demoing, so they have different strength. And if we're able to get connection with the weather service, the 2 lamps with color will be blue.
Well, the randomness part is just to add a bit more different colors. So whenever we reload the service, you'll actually see the things happening. So we just added that just for the demo. Yeah. Normally, it would be just some kind of multiplier for that, right?
Yeah. And what's worth to say about that is that the brightness scale goes from 0 to 255. So if you change if one bulb gets brightness of 57 and one 58, you wouldn't see the difference. That's why we added lots of fun.
Yep.
So here we go.
Okay, the excitement is wild.
And they did, what? Yeah, they did change some color. If we do it again, hopefully we see another change. Yeah. Okay, so now they are turning green. That's interesting. That means that we didn't, we weren't able to connect. Yeah, we were. Okay, sorry about the color part. I'm a bit confused, but.
I think that's right. The green is the right one. It gets blue when it's not connected, I think.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so things are a bit unstable. Yeah. Well, hey, it seems to be working then. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So again, very simple stuff, and we kind of wanted to wait to explain what is happening before we show off the lights, because as is, it's not super impressive, is it? Like, well, you push the button and lights change. And, well, you know. But then what happens in the background is that you have a bunch of microservices that are talking to each other and that are actually making things happen and making some kind of decisions in the background, checking the health of the services, checking the configuration, loading it, running it on a different application servers at the same time. All that is kind of packed into the Docker and, well, blah, blah, blah. And all those kind of cool, impressive stuff is, well, I pushed a button, lights change.
Yeah, okay, so let's dim the lights back to reset again. Just so they aren't so much brightness here.
Reset.
Yeah. And let's head further back into maturity, because, well, one thing we haven't implemented, which we'll come back to later in the talk, is open tracing. Like open tracing is that you can, when we do this call to the gateway calls further to the weather service and then to the lightning control service, right? So with open tracing, you can follow that call from me as a user through the entire microservice chain there and see which part took a long time. What happened? If it fails, you can see where it failed, which is great, but it also is hard to make. It's hard to make if you haven't done it before and you don't really know how it should be done.
Yeah, and it's kind of thing. I mean, if you all kind of go back in your heads and think of like whenever you had to implement the features, like on kind of enterprise things for work, for probably not for fun, but mostly for work. Usually you have like some kind of client, you have some kind of server, and you have to do all the tracing of your errors, and like you want to know when things fail, where they actually fail, how long things took, how long time things took, and all those kind of things. And usually you end up writing those kind of, I mean, there are libraries for that and everything, but well, it's a little bit of a hassle to do that. But with this one, it is supposed to be much easier.
And I think it is easy if you know what you're doing, but we're not. But one of the things that makes it hard is that, well, we use OpenLiberty here, we use Fontail here, and OpenLiberty has guides how to do this in Zipkin, it's an open tracing tool, while Fontail has guides to do it with Jagger. This is another open tracing tool, and, well, we're not really sure how to handle that. But, it's hard to find a guide that says Microprofile, open tracing, guide, like tutorial.
We might need to write one, I guess. But the thing is, well, it's so many implementations and different implementations that it's actually up to vendors to select what they want to use for open tracing and how they want to do that and how they want to implement, which is kind of cool, good thing because it gives you flexibility, but it might be a little bit bad thing because, well, you get this.
Yeah. All right. Should we stop whining for a little moment?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's about time.
Yeah. Except for this one not working.
Yeah, try to restart that as well.
Right. So let's head on to the time and weather service. What are we doing there, which you haven't already talked about?
Well, they're super complicated services. I mean, there is a lot of extreme logic in there. It gets the date.
Yeah, the time and weather service. Well, yeah, you can probably get what it does. You invoke it, and then it gives you the current time and date back.
With time zones.
Yeah, with time zones.
Oh, yeah. That feature we didn't implement, and what happened was that we moved to another time zone, did this talk, and nothing worked. That was because we were returning it in a different time zone that, well, and...
Yeah, we fixed that since then. And the weather service, yeah, we've already been talking about that one. So what it does get the entire forecast for a given location, right now Kyiv, and returns just the temperature. Some XML parsing and fun.
Oh, Jerry. Yeah, OpenAPI. This is the way of, well, you create all those microservices, right? And when you create them, you might want to document them, because otherwise you'll have a huge amount of services that are not documented. You have no idea how to use it. You have no idea what to send in. And, well, Yeah.
And what you see here is what you get from this little thing. So what you do is we annotate it with operation, add a description. Yes, this is the time service, by the way. And you add this little annotation to your code, and then you get this thing back. So it also exposes what is the time DTO. Yeah, it has a time representation, which is a string, because some date time and constructors and serialization and
Yeah, all the
long
other
story.
thing. But well, the whole point is that it is machine readable and it is able to can be consumed by the other things that will give you that will get that information and show. So Swagger and stuff like that would use something like that as well in somewhere in the back.
Yeah, you can perfectly fine push what you get from this thing into Swagger UI or API EE or whatever tool you use. So it's machine readable as well, the resulting part.
All right. Okay, let's talk about some other stuff.
Yeah, other cool sticky stuff.
Well, some of them are cool, and some of them are, well, a bit less cool because, well, here comes,
let's go into that one. Yeah, sorry.
That one is, it's very mixed feelings. I'm not really sure what to say about that. We were kind of okay with that for some time, and we were not really okay with that in 2 hours before this talk. Because, well, things just started kind of failing, and we started kind of blaming Lombok for that, and then we, well, ended up removing the whole thing, and then we realized it was something else. But, well, the thing is, your mileage might vary. You might want to use that because this is not, it has nothing to do with Microprofile. It's more like kind of things that might make your life easier, but sometimes might make your life a bit harder. So it's up to you to decide whatever you want to, whenever you want to use it or not. I have an experience of both, really. Sometimes it just worked really nicely, and sometimes it would just fail things, and you will it will fail your ID. You'll get some weird errors and stuff. Yeah. What it does, maybe we should say,
yeah. Perhaps it's time to tell what it does. How many you know what kind of what Lombok does, by the way? Just a couple. Okay. What it does is that it basically generates all the boilerplate code for you.
So setters, getters, all this kind of
constructors, toString, equals, hash code. So if you want to, like for this demo, remove all those things so that the code, or just to, so that the amount of code you see is smaller and you're not seeing the boilerplate code. It's great for that. But what it does in the background is it does some compilation magic and some bytecode manipulation and lots of things you really should be doing.
Actually, I realized that we have actually implemented a little funny feature now. When we removed Lombok, you can actually go between those two commits and see how much code difference it is. Because there is one commit there that is very, very recent, where there is like with Lombok, without. And then you can actually switch between and see how much code difference it is.
Yeah. So it can be fine for demo purposes, but especially these days when Java is coming with new version more and more often, then it's probably smart to be careful about not introducing Lombok without.
Well, I mean, it's kind of common sense, right? Because the less dependencies you have, the more agility you have, kind of thing, right? Then, well, up to you, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you're messing with the bytecode, then you might get trouble in your Java version. That also makes sense.
That might happen as well.
Yeah, but enough Lombok for today, maybe.
Lombok
is also, by the way, an island in Indonesia, not that far from Java.
Fine, fun fact. This is, again, nothing to do, not that much to do with Microprofile, but it's more a kind of funny hack that we want to share with you.
Yeah, because you often need a logger in your class, or especially if you use plain logging and not some kind of elk stack kind of solution. And then you want to inject your logger with add inject. And if you do something like this, then you can do that. That's all that is to it.
Yep. Another thing that we had to do is just another hack, but there is a chance that you might have to use it or do it. That's why we thought of mentioning that, is that, well, the Philips Hue API that gives us the jars and stuff, it's quite tricky to get hold of, and they don't publish it at Maven Central. Yeah. So you might want to, and well, that might happen with some other jars, something you have created or whatever, and then sometimes you just need to hack around that thing, so you can still use Maven, but well, you don't have it in the central. You put things in your own local repo for Maven. We're not going to explain that much about it. We're just mentioning that it's a possibility that you might need to do that. Search for that, and they will be pretty well explained. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. But we had to do that for this project, so we just thought mentioning that. Because, well, again, getting those jars was not really easy. You had to sign up, and you have to give lots of information, and then you get access to that. And it's a bit tricky to find as well. So.
Yeah. And again, if you want to have fun with the U lights and don't use our facade, well, use the REST API they're providing. Don't use the SDK. Well, and yeah, speaking of an SDK, of course we're programmed against the physical lights to be sure that we actually be controlling them right. But sometimes we realized we don't want to bring these lamps all the time when coding. So we figured out we could fake the API, so we implemented our own fake version of the Philips SDK.
And that's kind of basically the idea of mocking, right? Because you just create a kind of mock, and you can use it for testing, you can use it for everything, and you can run your code without having to connect to all those things.
And this is typically fine combined with using a config property of whether you should use a real bridge or not.
Yeah.
The Microprofile config. Yeah.
Another thing that we've been using for now is the Docker and Docker Compose. And while it's working really quite fine, you might want to automate that, and you might want to do some more stuff and add the fault, actually use that fault tolerance and everything that you expose. And then you might want to have something to handle it for you. And that brings us to the next slide of the future work. One of those future work things is Kubernetes. So we're working on thinking on porting all that, just again to have some kind of demo that works and that's easy to comprehend and easy to understand, and then you can just see how it works.
Yeah, and also we want to fix those. If you saw in our diagram of the services we have, we would like to implement the ones we haven't done yet, but do this with Tommy or Cumulus or the other app servers. But first, what we should probably be focusing on is doing open tracing, getting that work. If anyone you really know about open tracing, feel free to contact us.
Feel free to send pull requests.
Feel very free to send pull requests on anything, by the way. We accept pull requests. Everything is on GitHub, as we come back to. And also just propagation, which you haven't, due to reasons of time and space, I haven't done yet.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that is kind of, unfortunately, it's kind of security stuff gets pushed till you kind of really need it. And well, since it was a demo project, we kind of let that happen. And what it does, it does all the authentication and all those kind of things for you. And that would be really nice. And you can, since we're going all enterprise and over-engineering that thing on purpose, then you can actually connect that to some kind of authentication service. I don't know, pick the names from, I don't know, Azure Active Directory or whatever it is on the other clouds or anything on local, and just authenticate people or say, well, you're not allowed to switch on the lights.
Yeah, and maybe Keycloak as well, or other tools.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just worth mentioning that it's possible to do that. And there are plenty of articles out there that explain how things work with JOT, and I think there is a few on Active Directory. I'm pretty sure it is, and there should be some other ones as well. Yeah.
All right. Open tracing. Yeah. We just talked about open tracing and
we talked about that as well.
Yeah. What we haven't talked about is that the new version of Microprofile coming up, 2.1, where they will include a new version of open tracing. So, and for version 2.2 and onwards, it ain't really clear what's coming. Probably there's coming some reactive stuff, which we have to handle, but they haven't really closed the specification or the plan yet.
Yes. Oh, it's another thing that's worth mentioning, because we talked quite a bit about, it has many names, JBoss, Thorntail, Wildfly Swarm, and all those things. And now, because there were not enough names, so there is another name for that thing that is coming there, it's SmallRye. SmallRye is also something that's been started by Red Hat, which is an open source implementation of Microprofile. And it's open source.
Yeah. So what we think Red Hat are doing here is that they're taking the parts of Thorntail, which is it's Microprofile, but it also supports lots of other stuff and does other things. So they're trying to divide the Microprofile related parts from Thorntail and put it into its own implementation. So
and the good thing is that they're kind of sharing the code with the rest of the community, and this is how it is, and this is how we implement it and everything. So if you see that name somewhere working with Microprofile, you know what it is, and well, you know how to, well, at least you have some kind of idea how it should be working and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. And will it be a success? Will you ever see this name again? We don't know. But Reddit is using it for frontend right now, so who knows? Yeah, Kubernetes. We've been talking a lot about Kubernetes already. We want to look into it and use Kubernetes in this project, especially combined with Istio. Yeah, anyone knows Istio? Not many. Okay, that's cool. Istio is coming, and I think it's going to be big. But so Istio is a service mesh, so it's different things. Well, what Microprofile is, it's typical things you need for microservices, and Istio kind of, it's those things you need for communication between microservices that ain't there with Kubernetes or even OpenShift.
So it's basically where OpenShift or Kubernetes or all the other ones, where they kind of leave off. When they left off, the Istio takes over and picks it up and just continues to building up this thing. So this is something we would like to put into that project. So you still have this very tiny little thing that's very simple to comprehend, but it has all those features, and then you can actually see how all those are implemented, and you can actually see how they work, and then it might help you to just get started. That's the whole point of this really project.
Yeah.
It's so just have a little starter kit for all those small things.
Yeah, so just to name drop a few features from Istio, one of them is open tracing support. But another one which I find really interesting is the idea of A/B testing. Or like you can say that everyone using Internet Explorer should go to version 1 of that service. Everyone else uses version 2, or like 2% of the users should go to new version. This kind of like fine-grained load balancing.
Or you can do canary releases, right? Yeah. So say this super advanced IoT service thingy gets really big, and you want to test like with a tiny little percentage of your users that new version is running totally fine, and then you can just route 1% of your users to the new version, new containers, see how they work, if they fail, if they not. If they don't fail, you route the rest of your customers to that, or users, and if it's not, you just go back and you fix that and things like that, right? So all those things will help you to do that, and this is kind of the whole point of using microservices. This is how you should be doing it anyway.
Yeah. I think, by the way, that almost all the tools we've been talking about so far are open source. So
yes.
If you want to have a look at it, feel free. Yeah.
And the other thing would be just to make it sure it kind of runs on different clouds. So we don't really care which cloud it is. It could be anything, but well, you know, it would be nice to put it on the cloud and see how it works, especially when you put it on with integrated or make it work with Kubernetes and Istio and stuff. That would be pretty easy to make it work, and then you can even put there an OpenShift or whatever and things like that as well. So, you know, that's that's somewhere in the future. I guess we'll try to implement all the other stuff and see if because the cloud migration is not very magic when you have done all the other things that we talked about.
Yeah, and with that, I think we need to close up. Just to say, everything is on GitHub. Here's the URL. We're also going to post the slides on Twitter.
Yes.
A link to the slides on Twitter afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, at slide deck. At the DevoxxUA.
Yeah, just follow us. Follow DevoxxUA, and you'll see them. You'll find them.
Yeah.
Not a big problem. But the thing is, everything is open source, and that's the whole point of it. Because, well, again, this is meant to be just a tiny little starter kit to get started with all those things that we've mentioned. It's not supposed to revolutionize the IoT market or whatever.
Yeah. And one other cool thing is that you can also see all our commits and like all the things we screwed up and didn't know and tried to learn and fixed and failed and fixed and failed and so on.
Oh yeah, that's
all the history is here. Okay.
All right. And well, one more link. Basically, when we talked about Microprofile, well, you know, there is a URL for that. Surprise, surprise. And there is also a few contact information, a little bit of, this is us, this is Mats, and this is the one below, it's me, Rustam. So Are there any questions or anything? And well, before you leave or go anywhere, I got a bunch of stickers for like Microprofile and Jakarta EE and all the other things. So if you guys like stickers, just grab some. There is a question over there. You want?
And one close question. Could you do it remotely, for example, from other place?
The answer is, the short answer for the second question is yes, you can do that. And the first one, check Philips Hue specs. Because, well, Philips Hue, well, I mean, that's the short version. The long version is that Philips Hue has its own kind of, I think, partially closed source stuff that they do. It's based on, what's that? Is it Zigbee?
Yeah, it's Zigbee.
It's Zigbee that they're using to communicate, but they do some extra stuff on top of that. And so what we are using in this case, it's kind of Philips Hue, Philips proprietary stuff. But that doesn't really matter, because if you would have put some other lights from, I don't know, IKEA or whatever, it would use a little bit different. They're also using Zigbee, but they have a tiny little bit different protocols and stuff. But, well, it's close enough, so they are kind of interchangeable. But that's another story. Now we're actually talking about the protocols of the lights. That is, but yeah, well.
So the lamps need to connect via Wi-Fi, yeah, to receive signals from the laptop. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Over there, those of you who are sitting here can see can probably see there's a small little box lying there. That's the bridge provided by Philips. So in order to get lamps working, you also need this tiny little bridge, which is connected to Ethernet.
So that thing is connected to the internet, and that one you can connect it through internet, or you can do it through local net. Yep. But that's kind of yeah. Well, that's how they have implemented that. But that would be different if you choose something else. But so the laptop goes over the network, local area network, to that little box and tells it to do stuff. And after that is just magic happens, kind of the closed source magic of Philips happens. But basically it's Zigbee. Any other questions? There is one in the back. I'll give you the mic.
You mentioned about some authorization tools, and I'd like to know where it's better to place in the architecture. Whether it would be some, I don't know, general user authorization service, it can be distributed maybe.
Okay, a really quick answer for that one, because I would suggest to put that on your calls, and that's where you should, because otherwise you can put it. You can obviously put it here, but then whenever you get in, you can do whatever you want, and that you don't really want to do that. So you might want to put them, like authorization and authentication should be on services. And if you have any other questions, we'll be here around, and then we can do more. We can discuss that more. But yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for coming.